Hi everyone, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. Before we bring on tonight's guest, if you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. If you've had a Sasquatch sighting and would like to be a guest on Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio, please go to bigfooteyewitness.com and submit a report. All right, let's bring on tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is Kevin Tapaha. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Vic. How you doing?
Doing good, but more importantly, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Just at a point in my life where I'm kind of starting to learn to see things that are that I'd never have seen before, and kind of learning how to adapt with it, and I guess that's kind of why I had reached out to you.
Yeah, it's one thing to learn to see something that you didn't see before. It's totally different to see something you never wanted to see in the first place, but of course that's something that we're going to talk about at length tonight. But having said that, before we get into those details, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
All right, my name's Kevin Tapaha. I'm 43 years old. I'll be 44 on June 13th. That's my birthday. So I'm currently working as a behavioral health peer supporter, and trying to develop my own business, going to open up a peer-run recovery center on the reservation and here in the city alike.
You mentioned the reservation. What heritage are you, Kevin?
I am half Navajo and half Assiniboine, but 100% full blood, and that's very rare. On my CID, Certificate of Indian Degree Blood, it says 1/2 Assiniboine, and then my dad was 100% full blood Navajo, so his was 1/2. So it's kind of an odd mixture, but it's a rare thing to see that.
Oh, I believe it. I don't doubt that. In your opinion, has your Native American heritage had any effect on your ability to deal with your encounter?
Yes, it has. As I was growing up, I was always around my grandpa. I was always around his son Carl, and they were pipe carriers, and they had a medicine bundle, and they were able to do sweats and hand games and pipe ceremonies and perform sun dances, and they were medicine men basically, and I was always around them, and my grandpa would always tell me the traditional Assiniboine ways, and I was like an open book, man. I was chewing this stuff up. And then my uncle, like as I got older, I was kind of a bigger kid, I was like, but I was strong, and he was always having me help him. So he'd always come by our house, and he'd say, is Kevin KK around? And, my nickname was KK. Yeah, and they'd be like, yeah. And he was like, you want to come and help me? And, and then we'd drive around, and he'd tell me, spiritual ways and why things were the way they were. And I learned how to put sweat lodges up, and I learned how to, basically everything that they knew, they had instilled that in me. And a lot of it was a great deal of respect to the elders, and always listen what the elders tell you, because the elders, without the elders, we wouldn't be here. And we need to respect our elders, and that's something I've instilled into my children as well. The elders, they come first. So, yeah, the Native American beliefs as I was growing up, like in the sweat lodge, they would talk about this, what they would call Bigfoot, and he was, but he was like an object or a sacred, like an icon, a figure, a deity almost, that if you were to put out like an offering of tobacco or fruits and food and offer up a prayer and give it to him in a good way, then you would be blessed with a spiritual gift or a gift otherwise. And so I was always raised to believe that yeah, there was a Bigfoot, and, in the sweat lodge, they would talk about it sometimes, and well, there was a few stories where there was a Bigfoot actually outside the sweat lodge, out in the trees, out past the sweat lodge, and I guess he had come there, and I wasn't there that night, but my mom and my uncles and everybody had relayed that story to me, and I was like, man, that'd be cool, so cool to see a Bigfoot, or something to hear it, but I always believed that there was one, so I was never really doubtful on that part. And so, yeah, I'd say a lot of my traditional beliefs had a lot of bearing on how I came to deal with this, because there are things out there that we don't understand and we're not meant to understand, but they're there and they're always watching us.
That they are, and like you said, they're always watching. They obviously told you about Sasquatch in the Sweat Lodge, but did anyone ever mention anything about Dogman?
No, nobody had said anything about a wolf or anything like that, or nobody said anything about that. It was always a wolf was a very symbolic. That we look to wolves as, the town I come from is on the reservation is called Wolf Point. And, they killed so many wolves back in the day that's how the Wolf Point got its name, because there were so many wolf hides that were just, there was pictures in the museum of how many wolves there was like thousands of them, and it was like, they had killed a lot of wolves up here, but nobody said anything about a dog man, or I never even heard of a dog man, but nobody said anything about that.
Well, if that's the case, it sounds like they must not have had any run-ins with them, and that's definitely a good thing. Before you tell us about your encounter, Kevin, I want to share something with the listeners. At the end of tonight's show, I'm going to make an announcement, so don't cut out if you're early tonight, because if you do, you're going to miss it. All right, Kevin, now please tell us about your encounter. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay. I live here in Montana, Cascade County, Great Falls. And I was working at a place called Planet Fitness. I was a member service representative, and my hours were from 0600 to 1400. But I lived so far out, and I had to leave about 4:30 in the morning just to get to work, maybe 15, 20 minutes ahead of schedule. Because I like to go to that convenience store, which was right next door to Planet Fitness, get my energy drinks, my snacks for the day, and coffee. And well, there was another native fella working there at that convenience store, and I like, shoot the breeze with him. And, I kind of learned a lot from him. And, we were just two fathers trying to make our way in the world. That's kind of why I felt I had a connection with him. So he was always looking forward to me coming in, and I was always looking forward to talk to him before I went into work. So, like 10 minutes to 6, I go in, get ready, and start my day off, start checking in the clients and, cleaning and doing my day, and that's how it was. It was an easy job. It didn't pay very much, but you know what? It was the meeting of the people, and the integrity of keeping your workspace, being proud of what you were doing, integrity. And that's kind of where I learned it. There was doing the right thing when you think nobody's looking. That's what they tell you in, recovery, But that's what I would put my headphones in, and I'd, listen to music and just get my day done, and life was simple. It was easy. I was just waiting to secure housing here, and just me and my boy, get an apartment and start off new, start off fresh. And well, I was working. We were doing good. We were going fishing out there. We were tracking game. We were doing whatever. This guy I stayed with, he's a complete avid outdoorsman. He's, for the sake of it, I'll call him like. He's a good man. I met him at the sober living house I was staying at here in Great Falls, and he offered to take me in. He was like, he let me and my boy stay with him, so I had no ways to pay him back either. He's just, the fact that I could change my life and do better for myself was payment enough for him. And he helped me out plenty, until I finally was able to get my apartment. It was like a subsidized housing. They pay 30% of, based on 30% of your income, that was your rent, and, I think, wow, that's a pretty good little start there, for me, from where I was. Well, my son was with me, and, we were wrapping up, it's September 12th, 4:55 in the morning. That's when, 2019, that's when my life had changed forever. That's when I seen it. Day had started out like any other typical day, except now we were in September. The seasons were changing. It was dark, dark out there, walking along that Upper River Road. It was dark, there was no street lights out there, and practically the only light that I could see was from starlight. And, as you get around this curve, it's about a good half mile, I'd say, from the trailer park to, 3/4 of a mile to the hill, which is where the road curves, it goes west, goes around that hill, and then goes north, it comes around that hill and goes north, and it's like a little small, I don't know what you would call it, but there's tractors and RVs and trailers that look like they're parked there for storage, but there's 2 yard lights there. And that's the only light, for like 3/4 of a mile. And unless you got somebody's yard light on a house, down a certain street, there's some yard lights on. But other than that, this place is dark. So over the summer, I've grown accustomed to seeing all kinds of birds, squirrels, deer, just all kinds of wildlife, the birds and everything, particularly. So I got used to seeing all these deer and everything, and I was kind of silly. But this morning, as I was coming around that hill, I got about halfway where those yard lights were, and I was kind of like, I got this weird feeling, and I was like, started to think something, and my son had previously given me one of his flashlights to use, and it was like a real bright flashlight. My brother always gets him some good stuff, like for camping and everything, my brother being a Navy vet and all that, and buy some good tactical gear, so this flashlight was like really bright. I had like 3 settings on it, and, it lit up the night. And, I kind of needed it because as I leave, for work, there's a guy that leaves on a motorcycle from that trailer court, passes me, waves. And then looked like a couple of youngsters, teenagers, just barely graduate high school. Looked like they go to work. I don't know where they work, but there was a guy and a girl. So I assumed they both work, and then there was this, older lady, and, those were about the 3 people that I'd pass every morning going to work. And after that, there was nobody else on that road, And, okay, so I'm getting around this corner here, and, I start to feel something like a strange feeling, like I'm being watched, it's an odd feeling. I've never felt it before, I've never felt, under watchful eyes like that, like it was a weird feeling. I couldn't shake it, and I had my headphones in, and, well, I had took one side out and I was listening, and I could hear dogs barking off in the distance, that was all I could hear. And then they kind of went quiet, and there was no sounds of nothing, no night sounds, no crickets, nothing, it was still warm enough that the crickets were out. And, I thought that particularly odd, and I was like, wow, it's quiet. It is quiet out here. Off in the distance, you might hear a truck or something coming off the interstate, but it was very faint. But after that, it was quiet. Okay, so as I'm coming down that road, I'm sitting on the side of the road, on the other side of the guardrail, and I'm starting to walk where that curve goes north. And this is interesting because where that curve goes north, there's a small little community of houses back here, and it's a gravel road that comes right off the Upper River Road, and that goes into the gravel road, and then like there's this small 4 or 5 houses back there, and then these railroad tracks they come through. And then Lower River Road, which runs the outline of the river. They all come together here at this one point, and there's some trees there. And well, I start having this feeling that something's watching me, like, I couldn't shake it, I was just kept kind of putting me on high alert. So I pulled my other headphone out and I start walking, and I got that flashlight on and, and I start going around that corner and I kind of hear like rocks, like, when somebody steps on rocks, like gravel and the rocks kind of crush together, you hear it like that. And I was thinking, wow, there's probably a deer up there, and well, then all of a sudden I hear this, like these rocks just kicked, and it scared me. It scared me, like made my heart jump. And I quickly did a 45 like that with that flashlight. And I see what, rocks coming down those railroad tracks, those purple rocks, and there was quite a few of them, and this thing, whatever it was, it scratched out of there, and my light just caught the tail end of it as its two legs went over. And I noticed that there was a tail, and I noticed the back paws kind of looked like a mountain lion, I'd say, like a dog's paws. I was like, wow, I couldn't see it, and I was like, it couldn't be that, because I'm used to seeing things run away, and they usually, when you see the back end of them, they have white or black, on the legs, from their hooves. I didn't see that. And the tail was kind of a bushy thing, but, I was like, none of this made sense to me. I was thinking about it. And then right then, that kind of killed my thought because I heard it hit the ground on the other side on Lower River Road. I can't see it because these tracks are, above me a little bit, so I can't see what's on the other side. But I tell you what, I could hear it. I could hear it. And I liken these sounds to like when you're at the pool watching your kids run, like when they get out of the water and they start running on their feet on the concrete, you can kind of feel that, and you can kind of hear that slap. Well, this was like that. It was like that two-legged sound, but very, very heavy. I could feel it on the other side, whatever it was running, and I could hear it, the footfalls, and it was fast, Vic. I'm telling you, this thing was fast. There was about 200 yards from where these Lower River Road meets and the Upper River Road meets and the train tracks meet and that road there. And there's about, I'd probably say 250 yards to where the next outlet is, the road that borders the park. And this park is kind of a nice sized park, but it's just grass, and there's a few playground equipment out there, but it's not well lit. Okay. And at the time, prior in July, they had started to drill underneath the road there and then underneath the river because they had to set up water for, the people out that lived in our area, running water cooked up to the city, finally, because after that, people just had to fill up water tanks and get their water that way. Well, these company had started in July, middle of July. They were about finished, because they had built in the park. They had built up this staging area for all their equipment, and I used to walk by there and every morning and look at all that equipment. But okay, September 12th, 2019, they took down that staging area and they moved a lot of their heavy equipment out. But they had those posts, those street posts or traffic posts. I think they call them delineators, but I know they were 48 inches tall because I happened to have a tape measure one day. I wanted to see how high that was to me, and I was just bored, on my way to work. But they were 48 inches tall. Okay, that's going to come in handy here in a few minutes. I'll tell you why, because it was a point of reference for size. Okay, so I hear this thing running, and it runs down to where that street light is, and then there's a set of trees there. It's like trees, and then there's some bushes there, and on the other side of the road, you got these cones and a couple other looked like a small little steamroller and a big backhoe, and that was all pretty much the equipment that was left there. And while this, I hear this thing run, and it ran so fast that I was like, wow, this thing's fast, And in my mind, my heart's racing a little bit, I'm thinking, man, if that's a bobcat, I've seen some previous YouTube videos of bobcats, and chasing people, and it's like, wow, I want no trouble, I just want to get to work, But this thing or whatever it was had managed to run that 250 yards, and it was like 3-4 seconds tops, maybe less than that even. That's what shocked me, And footsteps, you could feel them, this thing was heavy. It was heavy. So I've never experienced anything like that in my life, I mean, like, sure, when you hear a horse run, yeah, that's something heavy, but this was a little more heavier than a horse, I was thinking this thing was more solid, it felt solid, whatever it was. Okay, so I'm like starting to walk again, and now I'm on the straightaway, and there's leftover construction pipes and all these things like that, and I got my flashlight on, and I'm kind of thinking, man, this ain't gonna do nothing, I don't have no bear spray, no knife. I had a knife, but a little pig sticker ain't gonna do nothing, against the semi. I'm thinking, wow, all right, Kevin, you're in it now, man. I start getting scared. I start feeling fear. Like it was like an oppressive feeling. Like you're walking into, like if fear was manifested like a fog, this was like a thick and heavy fog, man. I felt fear. I didn't know why. I didn't even know what it was, All I know is that it didn't have like that, sausage tail like a mountain lion has. It didn't have a white tail like a deer has, and it didn't have black hooves like a deer has. No, this thing was kind of like the grass, that it looks like after the winter, how that brown looks, but it was a little browner than that. It was like that color. And I was thinking, wow, that's kind of a unique color, it's like a deer color almost, but not. It was a little darker. So I was thinking, well, it's got to be some deer, I'm hoping for the best, Okay, so I start walking a little bit more further down, and then that's when I hear it coming over the tracks, and it going through the trees and the brush, and it's snapping branches. It's starting to, and I mean, I hear like tree breaks just like that, like this thing is big, and solid, like a bulldozer running through underbrush, it's heavy. And then that's when I see it, I see like, I see something coming over, and it's got like long forearms, and it's about, I'd probably say 4.5, 5 feet tall, cause it's gotta be that tall, but it's a dog, it's a big dog, like a black dog. And it came over the tracks and went under the drainage ditch. And then I kind of seen that it had like a mane, like I don't know, where the shoulders were. It was a tufts of fur, and the ears were long. And I thinking to myself, wow, this thing, that's a big dog, and then I hear these like the loud, I don't know, like chopsticks or something, wood breaking, like knuckles popping or something. It sounded loud, just a couple pops like that. And this thing stood up on 2 legs. And that's when my world changed forever. I'm looking at something that is not supposed to exist. I'm looking at something that is, wow, when it stood up, it had backward facing legs like a dog. And it was standing by one of those posts, those delineator posts, for to guide traffic. And 48 inches tall is how tall those things were. Well, when this thing stood up, I could see that it was a male. I could tell you it was a male. And And where that 4-foot post wasn't even close to its waist or tail, like it was just, the tail was above it, So I'm thinking this thing's got to be at least 8.5, 9 feet tall. But what really blew me away was how, the only way I could explain it was, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Van Helsing. Well, this thing looked exactly like that werewolf on Van Helsing when he changes into to fight that Dracula and he turns into that werewolf. Well, this is what it looked like, but it wasn't black. It was kind of a brownish. It has some red on it, like brownish red, like, a bear's kind of, cinnamon bear's got like reddish, kind of had that in it, but it wasn't all hairy like a bear. It kind of faded into like a skin, like more skin area, like baboons are, how they have the fur and then it kind of comes into like a bare patch and you can see their skin, this is kind of what it was like. And I was like, that was pretty interesting to see. What really blew me away was how big this thing was. I mean, this thing was like it had eaten creatine, for all its life and just pumping weights, the whole upper body was huge and his arms were just, well, they looked like humans, like a bodybuilder or like a real strong, tough, just like tough skin, like, because you could see the muscle definition and you could see it ripple and move, underneath that street light. And it was like nothing like I had ever seen before. I've had seen a couple werewolf movies, like Bad Moon, like back in '96, and then like Silver Bullet, but yeah, this was nothing like that, man. This wasn't Hollywood. This was real. This was right in front of me. And I'm thinking to myself, man, Kevin, you got about 150 yards to go to get to that park. And then that's when I noticed its appearance had changed because it had started to, I think it took a step, like kind of moved its foot forward. And I was kind of looking at it because I could see the definition of the muscles in it and how huge this thing was. It kind of came tapered down at the waist, but it had hands like, like, I don't know, like fingers and claws, but they were like down by its knees. That's how long these arms were, like, and I was like, wow, I'm at a loss for words. I'm starting to shake a little bit. I'm feeling I'm feeling tremors, Well, this thing starts to look up in the sky, I was like, what's it looking at? I kind of think it's not looking, it's sniffing, it's smelling the air. And I'm about 150 yards from this thing. And I'm kind of in the dark. My flashlight is off right now at the moment, but it smells the air. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, if it looks at me, I don't know what I'm going to do, And as soon as I thought that, his head snapped so quick to me and his eyes were just lit up, I don't know. It looked like at first thought they were self-illuminating, like his own soul had the capability to fire his eyes that color, because they were an amber color, and I don't know if anybody's out there has looked at a Budweiser bottle or, any kind of a bottle, when you put a light underneath it, that color, that amber color, or that was the color of its eyes, and I'm thinking eye shine. Well, that's some weird looking eye shine, because as it's looking at me, I can see that it's looking right into my eyes, and I'm starting to get the sensation that it's looking directly into my pupils, pupil for pupil. This guy's eye shine is looking at me, and it's evaluating me. I don't know what it's doing, but at that time, I started to feel this sudden onset of tremendous innate, I don't know what kind of fear you would call it, man. This isn't fight or flight fear. This is like, to me, this is like life changing, soul changing fear. The feeling that it invoked in me, it hit me on that cellular level that, yeah, okay, I better change, something, I don't know, but I'm not supposed to be seeing something like this, and, I spent a lot of time outdoors, and I spent a lot of time by myself in my past and walking, and never once have I ever encountered anything like this. I might have been scared by a few birds flying out, the roosts and things like that, man. This has nothing on that, though. This thing was tremendous. It was very, very huge. It was scary, and it was looking like I could swear it. I could not shake my eyes from it, And the first thing that I didn't want to tell you this in the first go around, but I was thinking my wife's Indian name is Shuktogija Maniwia, and that means walking wolf woman. Well, you take out Wia and put Wicha. Wicha means man, and I was thinking Shuktogija Mani Wicha. I was like, walking wolf man, that's what kind of ran through my brain. That's the Assiniboine, Nakota, and that's what ran through my head, and I was like, and I'm thinking, wow, this is crazy. Then it kind of like lost interest in me or something, it just kind of like I pose no threat, like this is my turf, kind of what it felt like, like I'm walking here, and it just kind of turned its head, and it kind of did a little chomp, when you hear a dog snap in the air and you hear those teeth click like that, you kind of like that. I kind of made that sound, and it kind of growled, and like that. And it was like, but it was a low growl, like deep growl, like you could feel this growl, and it just kind of took one step and it was already across half of the road, and then it took the next step and then it was walking behind this person's house, and I'm just standing there like shaking, and I'm at a loss for thought. I'm at a loss for words. I'm at a loss to what I'm doing. I don't even know how long this encounter took. I'm pretty sure it felt to me like an hour or something, man. I don't know how long it was there, but I know I stood there for a minute after I watched it walk off that road. And I watched that thing walk behind that house. And these people that live on that corner there have a yard light in the back, a security light, which I guess, when I walk by it on the road, it senses me and it turns on. Well, as that thing was walking up that hill, that light turned on, and I got some good detail on its silhouette. I could tell it was a male. I'll tell you that much. Because male only have certain genitalia, and that's when I could see the muscles moving, in his chest and his stomach, and I could see the teeth, and these things were white. They were white and they were sharp, and the ears were just like tufts, like a lynx almost, like they kind of came up to a point on each one, but they were like tufts of fur, and it had a long snout, and it was like werewolf, that's all I kept thinking, shoot to Mani Wicha. And I was like, wow, And I kind of caught my breath, there, and I walked behind, and there was like a couple of apple trees and a few bushes back there. Like it was walking underneath the tree, but it was so tall that it was hitting the bottom overhangs of the branches, and I could hear it walking underneath those trees. And I could tell that it was going up behind the yard, the property lines, and going up by those trees, behind those trees. And where it was going, I don't know, but I know it was going to the top of that hill, going through these backyards, because it was a straight run up that hill, and there's no fences, there's no nothing to divide the property lines. It's kind of a straight little run, trees, brush, things like that were what divided the properties, and this thing just could step over it. I could tell that if it crossed the road in 2 steps, yeah, that, and Upper River Road isn't very wide, it's like 2 car lengths wide. There's no room for a shoulder pretty much. So this thing crossed that road. So that's like 2 cars side to side, and it took it in 2 steps. And by then my thoughts start to gather a little bit, and I am just shook up. The look that it had given me is what really made me think a lot through ever since I've had this encounter. Okay, so I come to, and it's like I turn my flashlight on and I start walking a little bit, and then I'm like, no, Kevin, you gotta tighten up. You gotta get going, man. So I grabbed my backpack and I hooked the stomach straps, down there, hooked the chest straps, tighten those up, and then I tightened my belt one more notch, tightened my shoes up as fast as they could be, and I strap everything down on my, it's gonna shake, and I start running. Vic, I start running. It's about 150 yards to that corner where that street light is. I start running as fast as I can. I'm 42 years old. I haven't ran in a good minute, but I'm sprinting with the best of them now. I'm trying to get to that park, while this thing is on the other side of the houses, behind these houses here. And I chose the park because it was wide open and I could see what was coming up behind me. There's no bushes. There's like 1 or 2 trees. But other than that, it's just flat grass, and it goes up goes up the hill there. And there's, the road that I need to get me to where I need to go. And that's where houses are. That's where people are. And I start running, man. I start running all the way up that park. I'm not feeling my chest or anything puff or anything, so I'm thinking I'm doing good. I've been kind of a smoker for a while. But I get past that park and I'm like, nope, don't stop, man. Get going. And so I kind of get by the hospital there, and that's kind of where I kind of slowed down a little bit, because that's where the lights and people are, the big apartment complexes and things like that. There's people outside, and getting ready for work, and I'm thinking I'm okay. I'm safe a little bit, but I continued to run to that convenience store. And when I got to that convenience store, I didn't even stop or go in. I just went into work, got there. I was 5 minutes late, so I was there for a little bit. This thing kind of held me up a little bit. So, but it didn't seem like that long, but it was long, I guess. Time is so funny when you're in that kind of state of mind. It's like, it could stretch and bend time, and it's like, it was weird. It was a weird feeling. I get into work and I take off my stuff, and I'm in the back room, and my coworker's there, and she's like, Kevin, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing, I'm fine. She's like, no, you're not. You look like there is a ghost that just walked over your grave. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm gonna go clean I'm gonna go clean the locker room. That's usually what I did, in the mornings, clean my locker room, male locker room. And she would, after I was done with all the locker room, the bathroom and the showers and everything, she would go clean her side, But I kind of took a little longer that day, and she knew something was wrong. She could tell. I don't know how she knew. Maybe it was the look in my eyes, but all I know is when that manager came in, he got there at 9 o'clock. I walked right up to him and I was like, or her, she was the assistant manager. She came in and I was like, it's like, hey, can I talk to you? She's like, yeah, Kevin. I was like, I don't know what to do right now, but I seen, I ain't gonna lie to you. I said, I seen something on Upper River Road, that I'm not walking up River Road ever again in that morning shift. I said, I don't know. She was like, okay. Well, your safety comes first, Kevin. You don't want to. She was thinking like it was like a mountain lion or something, and that's kind of what I left it with her, because I didn't know if I should tell her, She was pretty fair, but I didn't want to glean too much information. I was waiting for the main manager to come in at 9. And she came in at like about 8, she was a little earlier than him, but I was waiting for the big dog to come in. Well, he gets there at 9 and I was like, okay, I was like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And I need to talk to you too. And the assistant manager, she came up and I was like, listen, I seen something this morning that, really has me shook up, and I don't know what to think about this right now. I said, but all I know is I am not walking to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, at 4:30 to get here at 6 in the morning. I said, you can fire me, you can change my schedule, you can do whatever it is, but I am not ever walking to work ever again. I said, and I said, I can come in at, like 7:45, 7:50 when, my, friend and his wife, she works for the state and he works for a treatment center, but they have to be to work at 8, and I was like, I can come in then, I could ride in with them. He was like, that's fine, Kevin, we'll change your schedule, and I was thanking God for that, because I never walked to work after that. I never walked Upper River Road after that. I rode in with my friends. And that's how it was until I got my apartment here on October 26th, 2019. So like it was from September 12th to October 25th, 2019 that I never walked up a river road again. I never did after that again. I now hold something that is now mine. It's something I seen and I tell you what, I will stand by what I seen, and it made me look at my life in ways that completely changed me, and changed my way of thinking, and made me look at the world with love and laughter and light, because what comes out of the darkness is I think sometimes what allows us to see the light, what we experience in the dark makes us appreciate the light even more. And I think that's probably what my native belief is. That's what I look at from when I pray about it and I think about it. And I think you live your life good, Yeah, that's all you really have in this life is people is remember you by the time you give them, and that's all we really have, Do you want to be remembered as somebody who is wasting your time or is just using you in a bad way? No, I don't want to be like that anymore. I want to make the time that I have left here with my kids and my son, especially in their futures. I want to secure that in the time that I have left now. So that is why I've been really thinking about, and I did not know what these things were called, after that, I was like, what are these things, So I kind of armchair researched a little bit, and was on the internet. And the first key thing that I looked for was werewolf. And I was like, no, werewolves are like, every bit of it, source of information was that werewolves were supernatural beings that had the ability to shapeshift. Well, coming from my dad would tell me, of skinwalkers, they need Uchi, and he would tell me these stories, when I was with him, and he said that these things were, they were just, they were like people, people who had turned their lives, who were on a good path, but suddenly made the horrific sacrifice of someone that for a bad power. And that came from jealousy and anger and things like that, This was different. This was like straight real. It was real, like this thing was of substance, like this wasn't no, this was no shapeshifter. This was a being actual and whole. Sure is the turn of the world. I know that. And it was flesh and blood, whatever it was, but it was so large, it was like something on that scale had to be at least 500 pounds at least. And that's what I'm thinking, cause, I weigh in about 230 now, but I've been up there, I've been up to like 250, 260, so I kind of know what it feels like when I walk around heavy, and this thing was like more than that, twice as much, and it moved and it moved quick for its size. You think something that big would move slow, but these things that are big, they have the ability to move faster than we can think. And that is what kind of blew my mind. This physics of it, the proportions and things like that. And that head was huge, it was like big, like, bigger than an elk's rack, that's what I could liken it to, this thing was huge. It was not lined up with his body like us humans are. This thing head was like, it was heavy, like big, like there was a lot of muscle in its neck or something, because this thing it was big. I've seen buffalo skulls, and this thing was like bigger than that, and, it changed my world, it made me think you got to look at these things and you got to say that this is what was given to me. Times are changing, this is not the world that I grew up with, I mean, like, I tell my son, like when I look up at the clouds, I tell my son, like, the clouds don't even look the same like they were when I was a kid, like, and he's like, what do you mean, Dad? And I'm like, I don't know. They just don't look the same like when we were kids, it's like everything's different now, it's like, so, I was told by you that there were 7 words that, when I start to, like if I wake up from a recurring nightmare of seeing this thing, or debating on whether I should go walk in the park, close to out of town, and I was thinking about that, and those words are true, as a Native American man, words are a powerful thing. There's power in words. And the words that you gave me were good, but he did not want to hurt me, is what you told me. And I was thinking about that, and the duration that, I was making my day here and thinking about a lot of things, and, but he did not want to hurt me. This thing, if it wanted to kill me, it could have very well killed me with just one blow or, one snap of his jaw, but he did not want to hurt me. It's like, now we're 2 different things, 2 different entities sharing the same space now. I don't know about what anybody else says, but I have a keen respect for this thing, and I don't know what it thinks of me, but I'd like to think it was, since I showed it respect, it was going to show me respect. That's all I can think, but all I know is I have a keen respect for what I see and what is given to me now, because this thing has changed me in ways on not only a spiritual, but a mental and emotional and a physical level, it made me want to spend the rest of my life doing good things. Life is about improvements, adapting, being the best versions of ourselves, and it's too short to be doing things that are, manipulative, just not very good things. I lived that way for a long time, and I've hurt a lot of people, and I don't want to be like that anymore. I want to walk in the light, because if these things are walking like in the dark, like I was walking on that, I don't want part of it. These things they make you look like you're in second grade, and they have a power way more than we have. And I couldn't even fathom to understand it. All I know is what I know is what I saw, and it changed me on ways that I could not be. And that is to spend the time that you have left on this earth loving the things that you have and taking care of the ones that are in your life, because life is short. It is short, and all we have is time. That's what it all is. And this thing has showed me that. It's just boggling to me how, I don't know what I would do, where I would be right now if I didn't see this thing, So I like to thank my maker for that, For all the listeners out there, I'd like to, I'll be saying a prayer for all you, traditional way, and put up some tobacco and make some tobacco ties and protection, You never have too much protection, but what I seen, I wouldn't wish on my own worst enemy. This experience is, I just want to, I'll be putting out some prayers tonight and, some tobacco ties for everyone, because, yeah, these things are here, and I know now that they're not flight of fancy. They're not mythological. These things are real, and they've been with us. And I kind of think they've been here longer than we have. These things are elite. These things are built, for a purpose. And, that purpose, I don't want to find out what it is. Seeing this thing from a distance was enough for me, and I don't ever want to see anything like this again, ever. But now, growing up, knowing that Sasquatch was real, but never seeing it, but, hearing my elders tell that these things are real, it's kind of like our life's revolving, and evolving. Now I'm starting to become in the age of years now, I'm 44 this year in June, and, I'm kind of getting up there in years, I'm still young enough, but I am at that point in life where I do know enough to teach people. And, what I know is this, that these things are with us, Bigfoot, Dogman, cryptids, they're here. They're right here. They're not out there. They're not, they're not in another realm or nothing. No, these things are right here on this plane of existence. And, we're all trying to live a way of life that is for the best of all of us. And I just wanted to thank everybody for, hearing my story, because, it changed my life. And, when I was researching this stuff, I came across this Dogman Encounters, and I was like, wow, it's just, I was just reading through the website, and I was like, wow, you said that you talk to people and that you like to help people with their encounters. Well, I've been carrying this thing since September 12th, 2019. And, I didn't really have anybody to talk to, my mental health counselor was like, I tried mentioning it to her once, but she kind of, she didn't really take it, seriously, I was like, kind of undermined it, and kind of chalked it up to, a flight of fancy, a projection of my mental state. And I was like, okay, I tried telling the professional something, it's time to go down to brass tacks. What do you know? Traditionally, my uncle would always say, in the third round of the sweat lodge, he'd say, watch out, it's coming. His prayer, the words were, watch out, it's coming. Never said what's coming, I always thought about that throughout the years, as I was getting older. I would be like, what is it I am supposed to be watching out for, It's coming, whatever it is. Well, this is it. This experience, this unique confrontation between separate entities on the same ground. That's what was coming. Watch out. Now I have to carry this experience in this mind and it's mine to share. I really don't care what people think, because I'm now at that point in my life where what you think about me and does not have any bearing on who I am or what I'm going to do, because I simply don't care what people think about me anymore. And I'll tell anybody that now, straight up to the face. For so long I was guided by what I mattered to people and what they thought of me. I don't have time for like that and be like that anymore. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. That's fine. We have to live together, and that's what it is. They're in my life now. I don't know if I'm going to be seeing anything in the future, because I do plan on going back out into the woods again. And, for the longest time, I wouldn't even go fishing. My buddy would say, hey, come on, man, let's go. I was so frightened to go back out into those woods and seeing these things again, or hearing something like that again, and, I was kind of, it affected me. Like, I used to be so outdoorsy, I used to go walk out and hike and do all this and by myself, and it's like, I didn't even want to do that. I didn't even have the desire to do that now. But after what you told me today in our previous interview, but he did not want to hurt me. Yeah. If these Dogman encounters, why, you're right. People that have encounters, they live through them. They're touched, touched my life for a reason. Because if this thing was meant to kill me, I don't think there would be that many Dogman encounters on your show, This thing would just obliterate and keep everything silent. So there is a higher purpose for these beings, and we might not understand it at the moment, but all I know is that they're out there, and they're everywhere. As I started to listen to some of your shows, I'm understanding that these things are everywhere. And I don't know. All I know is it changed my life on the most spiritual level, that hey, what you put out there, you get back, and you're always responsible for your own decisions, no matter what. Don't cast blame on people. Don't depend on other people. Don't just, live your life, live it in a good way, and that prayer that my uncle would always tell me about, that, watch out, it's coming. It was this little swallow in the Cinnamon, they call it gapipi. In the prairie, he's flying, back and forth, this little swallow in the wind, like hurricane-like winds, just nowhere to land, nowhere to set foot, just constantly flying and getting tired and fighting the storm, because he's so light and little, he can't find shelter anywhere from the wind, he's flying, and that's what my uncle was trying to get across to me, when I was so young, and 14, 15, being in that sweat lodge, I didn't make sense to me then at 15, but it was a 42-year lesson for me. And some of those life's lessons do take the extent of how old you are to learn. And that's what they call your age lesson, if you're 44 years old and you learn something new, that's a 44-year lesson, So I'd like to say that was a 42-year lesson. And I learned from it. I learned from it, Vic, and it changed me. It changed me in a good way, So now I'm thinking about going back out and fishing again and living life again. But I am living life with an utmost respect for these creatures, And yeah, like I said, I'll be putting out some tobacco ties tonight and prayers and saying some prayers for all your listeners out there, and pray you don't have an experience like this, because, well, it'll change you in ways that you wouldn't even believe, but he did not want to hurt me, those are good words, and those are powerful words, and I will always remember those. And I'd like to thank you for that, Vic. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell me my story. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just so glad that you came on and decided to do this. And so that you know, I really do like the way you think, Kevin. You drew positive things out of a negative experience. As long as you can say that, then you know you're doing something right. You said you could hear its feet slapping on the pavement, but could you hear its claws clicking on the pavement as well?
Yes, I could hear initially before the bump, before that bump, you hear like a little click, and I didn't know what it was at the time, it was like I just thought it was like a rock, or I didn't really think nothing of it, but I could hear it, like that at the very initial start of the bump. So yeah, you're right, and there was also another thing that, I didn't make mention because I didn't really notice it at first, but this thing had a smell to it, it was horrid, man. Like, I smelled some pretty rough things in my day, and like deer carcasses rotting, things like that, just like the decay of flesh, is got its unique smell. As it breaks down, you smelling death. It smelled like that. And then we had this dog, and he was like this little cocker spaniel. He was a mutt, but it was my dad's dog. We called him Twigger. That was my dad's sidekick. But he was like a mixture. He was a mutt, but that was my dad's dog. But he always had this smell, like he smelled like corn chips, And then when it would rain, that smell he had was like, it turned worse, like wet dog corn chips, It was that smell. And then there was this urine smell, like real potent, like a strong urine smell, and then there was something else, like a pungent smell I couldn't even identify, but I could smell that as I was crossing that house, and it was enough to kind of curl the hairs in my nose, as I crossed that area, it was kind of a stink smell there. I don't know what it was from, but I guess from doing, reading some of these encounters, some people say that they have a smell, I guess even some of these Bigfoot encounters, they say they have a smell too, like that. And, I don't know what that's from, maybe it's just their pheromones or whatever, or, it's just them, cause, but yeah, it was a pretty unique smell, and I don't think I'll ever forget that. It was strange.
It must have smelled bad if it left that much of an impression on you. Wow. Why do you think it was running around the way it did? Do you think it did all that for your benefit or for another reason?
I don't know. Everything has a purpose in life, everything is designed to have an impact on its surroundings or its environment or the next object or whatever, it's, everything has its purpose. And, I just think I happened to catch it, because, I noticed that like 2 days before that, before my son let me use his flashlight, as I was walking, I could hear like, across the river, and up the hill on the other side, like where the airport's at. And there's a housing complex back there, like houses that are, like middle class houses and things like that. But and I remember now that there was barking up there that first day, like 2 days before that, like barking, like a lot of dogs barking. I didn't think nothing of it, I was like, I heard them. It got my attention, but I was like, it's probably a coyote or something, I didn't think nothing of it. Well, the next day, as I was walking, I heard like if you took a big boulder or something and you threw it in the river, and you hear this like that. It was a heavy sound, and I was thinking, whoa, that's got to be a huge catfish or something, I was thinking, and it was slapping, like you could hear the slapping, like like water moving. I was like, what the heck is that? Is that a beaver or something? I didn't think nothing of that, Well, I was starting to think that it was this thing, this Dogman probably walking a trail or something, looking for food or looking for something, but like we just crossed paths, like our trails came together, and I think that's probably why it was, I don't know, showing a display of dominance or just saying, hey, I'm here. Maybe that's why I was running, but I don't know. It was like at first it didn't want me to see it because, at first I did not know it was there. It was on the tracks, which are a little higher than the road, and it was behind some trees, like as I was coming around, those trees came to an end, and that's where it was at, so it was out of my line of sight. It was when it moved and it jumped over that when I spun around, like at first it didn't want me to see it, but I could definitely feel it. I was aware of it, that was that feeling that as I was coming around. And that's the funny thing about humans, that we have this sense, like this, I don't know what it is, but I was able to feel it, it was an odd feeling, if anything, that something was out there, it was just like somebody was watching me, and I was like, wow, wonder why I'm feeling this, but strong gut feeling was to turn around and go home and wake my buddy up. And, that was my first thought, my gut was telling me that I should have listened to my gut, and that's something I always tell people now, is always listen to your gut. I should have just turned around and, but I would have negated myself that experience, I would have been at a loss. So things happen for a reason, like it was probably running just to, I don't know, probably let me know it was there and let me know what it is, That's all I can think of.
After hearing what you just said, you've got me a little cloudy on this. Are you saying that if you could go back and do it all over again, would you rather still have that encounter? Or if you could wave a magic wand, would you rather not have that encounter?
Tell you the truth, Vic, as much as I'd like to have turned around and listened to my gut, well, sometimes we make mistakes for a reason, because we learn from them, I'll take this encounter all over again because it made me think differently. It made me feel differently about certain situations, and it gave me almost an insight into myself that I don't think I would have ever developed if I didn't see it, so, it's like, I take this experience. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world, it's my experience. It's mine to own. It's mine to own. I'd keep it, because I am now one of the few, or a lot of people now, that have seen this thing and can testify to what they have seen. And, well, it touched me, it touched my life for good. And, sometimes darkness shows us the light, So no, I wouldn't change it. I would not change it for the world.
Well, I said it before and I'll say it again. I really do like the way you think. I'm impressed. Did it seem to be having any trouble rising up onto its back legs besides that popping that you heard?
Actually, it kind of like when it did that, I don't know what joints or if they were joints or what, but something popped in it and it kind of jolted, like it felt pain, like it physically felt pain because it like jolted, like, when someone winces at like a punch or something, it, to me, that's what it looked like, and then when it stood up, it was like, I don't know, man. Like, it must feel pain when it does that, like, that'd be like us dislocating a shoulder, to get out of a straight jacket. It hurts us, but we're able to put it back in. It's a painful experience, but we can do it. I think that these things have learned to do that. That's what my impression is. But to me, it looked like it hurt it. Like it was hurting when it did that. Like sometimes your knuckles hurt when you pop them. But yeah, to me, that's what it looked like. Like it was feeling pain when it was shifting position to stand on two legs. But when it was standing on two legs, it had no problem. It had no problem letting me know he was free and clear. He was. But sometimes to get a different take on life, we have to endure pain. And that changes our perspective on life. People lose a loved one. They learn to look at life differently. They learn to live with the loss of that loved one, like they're always there. But at the same time, they're feeling that pain, but at the same time, they're giving out love. They're giving out gratitude, kindness, things like that. But at the same time, they're still feeling that pain. So I don't know. That's just kind of what I feel. That's what I feel it was doing, I don't know why, but it made me think of Lethal Weapon when he was in that straight jacket, and Sergeant Murtaugh comes in and he's like, he starts collecting that money or whatever. And he's like, and he dislocates his shoulder and he gets out of that straight jacket, that's what it made me think of. I don't know why. Over the year and a half that I had to think about it. Yeah, that's kind of what it made me think about was the Lethal Weapon, how he dislocated his shoulder and got out of that straight jacket, He had to feel that pain to get free. Like these things have to feel a set of pain when they pop joints like that, to stand on two legs. Their freedom, I don't know. That's just how I see it. I'm not by no way means an expert on anthropology or anything like that or anything of that matter, but that's just what my heart tells me, and what I seen, and it was like, wow, it was weird. It just kind of made me think about that. I don't know why I think of Lethal Weapon when I think of that, but as an analogy, yeah, I think they have to feel some pain to stand on two legs.
That had to be so creepy to see. It's all fun and games until the Dogman stands up. When it finally made eye contact with you and stared you down, do you remember what it was doing with its arms?
Its arms were, strangely enough, when I first made initial eye contact with it, it was standing, one leg was shoulder width, and the arms were kind of like sticking out in front of it, like, I don't know, kind of like, how women, like, when they walk, they kind of put their arm out like that, and their arm is sitting straight, but their hand is like forward, and they kind of walk like that. But this thing had both arms out like that, and then it kind of like, they moved down as it turned, but for the first few seconds, its arms were in front of it, and they were long, and that's when I could tell that these arms were really long. And, it was kind of like they were just out at the ready, but the hands, that's when I could tell they were hands, claws were pointed down like that. And it was like that, like it was holding it in front of them like a kangaroo or something, But as it turned, even more, the hands went down. And that's when I could see the chest, the skin on it and the ripples of the muscles and the detail. And it was crazy.
Oh, I'll bet. You described its hair as looking patchy and scraggly. Did it look like it had some kind of an illness and that's what caused it to look that way, or do you think it normally looked that way?
I think it's just how it looks, like I said, like kind of liken it to like the orangutans, or how they got like fur on or hair on their body, and then at the same time they got like thick skin. Well, this thing looked like its skin was thick, I don't know, man. It looked thick. That's all I know. So like, there's probably no hair there for a reason because it's like thick. So I don't no way know anything about its anatomy or physiology, but like I don't think it really needed that hair.
No, I'm sure it didn't. How far were you from the closest house when you had that encounter?
I was about as I was coming around. The house that was on that gravel road behind me was at first it was just a garage, and then a house, but that was probably about 100 yards. But the house in front of me was about 150 yards, and those were the only two houses in that area. So I had nowhere to knock on doors if I had to. This thing would have mowed me down in my first two steps. This thing could have traveled that distance fast, like 3 or 4 steps, and he would have been on me. So hearing it move that fast on that other side on that road, and how fast it moved, that 250 yards approximately, that was fast. I mean, I was fast. That's all I could think about was how fast this thing, how silent those steps got, and how fast that happened. And it was no time at all. Like, this thing was moving fast. I can only imagine what it would do on four legs. I've been hearing a couple episodes today that these things can keep up with vehicles going 65 miles an hour, and I'm like, whoa, these things can move.
Yeah, you're not going to find anything about Dogman that's going to give you the warm and fuzzy, so yeah, that's not a surprise.
Right.
No doubt. You've had some serious problems with nightmares because of that encounter. Are you still having them?
Every now and then, like, I'll be like in my apartment, and I'll be having like, I'll be in my bedroom sleeping, and I kind of have like I don't know, like as soon as I'm falling to sleep, I get this feeling of like, my first thought is like, there's a dogman outside my apartment door, on the third floor in the hallway. I'm thinking that there's something out there. And that's my first thought, and then I can't breathe. And then like I wake up and I'm like, and then I guess that's onset of sleep paralysis, but for me, sleep paralysis was always when I woke up. I never knew you could get it going into sleep. I've been starting to have that now, but when I start to go into sleep and get that sleep paralysis, I keep thinking that, like there's something like a dog man standing outside my door, and that it's come to finish what it started, and these irrational fears, and then I wake up, because I can't catch my breath. And then I turn on my side and everything goes away. And I think mindfulness has a lot to do with that, like becoming aware of my breathing, my environment, the way the sheets feel, the blankets, the temperature, everything like that comes into play. Mindfulness and radical acceptance has been a huge, huge part of my recovery.
Well, it sounds like you are making a recovery, and yeah, I just hope you continue to improve. And please do remember, if you have a nightmare tonight, or any time for that matter, yeah, please do remember those magic 7 words.
Well, he did not want to hurt me.
That's right.
I will.
Please do remember that. Your son has been trying to get you to move on from that experience, from what I hear. What more can you tell us about that?
He's like, my brother has been teaching him how to shoot. He's been shooting handguns. He's been shooting assault rifles, and I don't know if he's shooting long range rifles or anything yet. But my brother is teaching him that the way of the gun, basically. And my brother's instilling in him discipline. And I I think that's kind of what he's reflecting is like, Dad, you can't be letting this thing destroy you, And I think it's kind of what my brother is teaching him, and he's starting to, like, my son can tell me anything. I don't care what it is. He's allowed to tell me anything. So I think he's just telling me that I can't let this thing keep me from deciding where I am. Am I going to let it control me? He's like, or, you're going to grow from it. You take your own medicine, Dad, take your own advice, practice what you preach, and I think he's telling me to say, I got to look into myself for this, because I am, I'm missing a lot of fish. I am missing a lot of walleye, I love catching walleye. I love catching trout on the brooks and everything. I love the smell of fish, tying my own line and everything. And I love that being near water. I love the feeling that water gives you, because water is life. It's what makes us feel good in the morning when we take a shower. It's what nourishes us. It's what we use to hydrate ourselves, and water is life. And I need to be near water because that is an element that I really think is a very, very important part of my life. Everywhere I've been, pretty much where I've set stakes has had a river by it, and I've always spent a lot of time by those rivers. So yes, water is essential to me. I don't get very much water here living in the middle of the city, in a third floor Main Street central apartment. I don't get very much water unless I walk across the river, and that's something that I used to do every day, was walk across the river. But ever since seeing this thing, I was like, I haven't even been really outdoorsy very much, been kind of inside a lot, and spending a lot of time in the city, and it's like, that's not really who I am. As a Native American, we're people of nature. We that's where we thrive. That's where we become ourselves in nature. That solitude we spend out in the elements is what defines us as who we are, and that's something that we need. And I'm kind of hurting on that. And like I said, there's 4 aspects to the human condition. You got your mental, your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual. And while it's spiritual and emotional is what's kind of taking it out for me. How am I supposed to lift something up, if those 2 legs are lacking? It's not, that table is gonna fall, right? So I got to work on that. And a lot of it is, I think my son is telling me just to face your fears, because Dad, it's all right. It's okay. It's yours to own now, Dad. How you choose to use it now is up to you, but don't let it at the expense of who you are and your self-interest. So I think that's what he's trying to tell me. But yeah, he's really my inspiration, my best creation. The only thing that I could say that I've done right in this life was to have him, give him half my heart. He's a good kid. I love it.
He sounds awfully precocious for being as young as he is. Yeah, he's not only lucky to have you, I'd say definitely you're lucky to have him. Before I ask you for your closing comments, Kevin, I'm going to make that announcement now. Some time ago, I decided to collaborate with the U.S. Bigfoot Patrol on a Bigfoot-specific podcast. The podcast is called My Bigfoot Sighting, and it's already available on YouTube. What makes My Bigfoot Sighting different from other Bigfoot shows is the fact that there's no host. Because there isn't a host, that means there's no questions, no small talk, and no chatter. The show is nothing but 100% Bigfoot encounters, told by the eyewitnesses themselves. Again, the show is called My Bigfoot Sighting, and if you check the description for tonight's show, you'll find a link to the channel. Alright, Kevin, having gotten that out of the way, do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, there is one. These things are are making themselves known now, and while this is not going to stop just here and there, there's so many things about this world that we don't even understand, that they say that truth is stranger than fiction, and I never really knew what that meant growing up, in my tween years and all that. When I first started hearing that, never really made sense to me. But now, having lived 4 decades plus, I'm starting to think, well, whatever can be created in one's mind can also be created out there. They say belief creates reality. Well, who's to say where these things are coming from? But the simple fact is that they are here and they are out there. So I can only foresee these things as coming to light pretty soon. The whole thing is going to come down and everybody's going to get a dose of reality that they're not going to like. So I think it's the ones that do have the experiences, try to listen to them with an open heart, because, they're telling you this story for a reason. They had this encounter for a reason, because in the future, when these things are come to a head, and we're going to find out, I know there's going to be a disclosure at some point. They cannot hide these things to the point where they can put a lid on it. No, these things are growing. They're like humans, they're advancing and encroaching into different territories. And well, only encounters are going to happen more and more when that happens. Frontier settlers had that problem with natives. The further they encroached into native land, they had more and more encounters. It's how they chose to treat these encounters was what decided the outcome of the fates of these people, And I think about it now that it's kind of the same way. This is the Wild West. How we choose to encounter these things is going to definitely have an outcome on our fates. So I'm not one to go out and hunt it. No, man, it's a thing, actual living, breathing thing. If it's got a soul, I don't want to kill it. It's like, he let me live for a reason. I wish ill will, brother. Like I said, I will take out some tobacco ties, put out some tobacco ties tonight, and say some prayers, and thank Takashala that I had these encounters. I got to share my story, and because I know for a fact that someone else here in Great Falls had seen the same thing, down there in that area, and well, he was staying in the same trailer park I was, and he was like, man, bro, he's like, I don't even know what that was, he said, but it was a big dog, He didn't see it stand on two legs, or his encounter was a little different. He just seen a big dog, but it was out there. It's living right alongside of us. So these encounters are going to happen, and we're not in an area where there's a lot of wood, there's a lot of high plains, and a lot of, mountains and buttes and things like that. We're in the high plains, but these things can adapt to their environments anywhere. And from what it sounds like, reading all these, where these encounters happen, boy, they're built for a purpose, and they are very hardy, they are very adaptive. They are very resilient, and they are very strong and fast. And, they're out there for a reason. That's all I know. And, heaven help the ones that did not have an open mind to see it, That's the ones I pray for,
Well, unfortunately, there are plenty of people like that, but that's what I'm here for, to try and help. Kevin, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing that experience with us. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks again so much. Have a great night. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you.